Hey everybody, welcome to day one of the AV Tech Talks Summit, the first ever. So thankful and so honored to be here with you guys, and I'm grateful to even just be hosting a summit. Anyways, this has been an awesome experience from start to finish. I hope you guys enjoy what you're about to see, and like everything else that I do, I try not to talk too much, so I'm gonna just dive right into this with our first opening keynote speaker, who I'm honored beyond belief to have on with us today. A big shout out to Tyler Mayne, the CEO of Evolve Technologies. Tyler, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Greetings from Curitiba, Brazil.
Oh, nice in Brazil. I like it. How's
Yeah, it's
Brazil
very
treating
nice
you right
down
now?
here. It's good. It's beautiful down here. So everything here is the opposite. So summer there is winter here. The south is cold. The north is hot. I'm in the south right now. I think the water in the toilet flows the opposite way. So everything's kind of the opposite down here. But it's a very beautiful city, very European, and I highly recommend it, especially if you want to escape that hot Florida summer.
Nice. So I'll definitely put it on my to-go list for the end of the year is to go to Brazil. So Tyler,
For
real quick,
sure.
I wanted to talk to you. I know we got you on here to be the kind of the current state of the industry and talk about what's going on with between now and what we see for the future. Um, Before we jump into this, is there anything you want to start off with before I just start asking you a bunch of questions?
No, I say let's just dive into it. But I'm very happy uh, that we're doing this together, and I also think this is a testament to where technology is. That we can be on opposite sides of the equator and be able to talk. I'm here on in Brazil on my iPad, and you're in South Florida, and it works great. So
I am
a testament to where technology is today, and that's
100%.
that's proof right now.
So let's kind of dive into that, right? This is the perfect first question for what we're doing right now. So my first question is: the future of hybrid events is uncertain, right? But if you look in the past, and this is obviously my experiences from corporate, but if you look at the past, there's one thing that remains constant is change. Change is constant in everything we do all the time. So let's start with the most common question going around right now in the AV community: is are hybrid events here to stay?
That's a very interesting question. My immediate answer to that is temporarily, yes. But if we look at human history, for example, we're in the gathering business. That's kind of how I describe what we all do for a living. And humans have been gathering for millennia. So thousands of years ago, we would sit around the campfire. Stories were passed down, music was passed down, and it was from people gathering together. And that gathering still happens at concerts and trade shows and events. And it really boils down to what is tribalism, which is, I like this band. I want to be around people that are like me. I like this sports team. I want to be around people that are like me. I love my company or my industry. I want to be at this convention or trade show around people
Right.
like me. And there's a connection that you get from being in person, especially with a large group, that you can't get when you go virtual. So I think that virtual is necessary right now, and thank God it's here, because if COVID would have happened just 5 or 10 years ago, none of this technology would have existed. And the technology that did exist was extremely expensive, and only a few large Fortune 50, Fortune 500 companies had it. So what we're doing right now, even, it wasn't possible. So these technologies that cost millions of dollars potentially are now free or at very low cost. So thank God that's around. But to kind of answer your question, I think that, I've been to some virtual events. I've attended some, and it's like if you've ever drank non-alcoholic beer, it tastes like beer, but it's just not quite the same. But I think as we're transitioning out of COVID and other countries are transitioning out of COVID, everything won't happen at the same time. So for the larger events, you'll have a choice, which is, if we use Vegas as an example, you have a choice. You can go to Vegas and come to our convention or a show,
Right.
or you can attend the virtual version of this meeting. I think what's going to happen is some people will attend the virtual, and for some companies, it will add value because it will allow them to reach a larger audience by opening it up to virtual. But most people that can will travel for that show. Not only because we're in the live events industry, we're kind of jaded by this, but a lot of this is just being able to get out of the house and be away and have drinks with your comrades, go golfing, have a week where you're just having fun and being immersed in your company culture or whatever the event is. And I don't think that's ever going to go away, at least nowhere in the near term. So thank God we're able to keep events going because of virtual. I think that now that events are coming back, um, live events like concerts are going to go back to the way they are. We're not going to, there's going to be no more virtual concerts. Nobody's interested in that. Shows, you could have that dynamic, but the question is, and this would be more of a question for you or Omar or others that are in the live events industry, is now that live events are coming back, what percentage of those events are the clients saying, hey, yeah, we're going to have 1,000 attendees and we're going to have 30 breakout rooms, but we also need to make sure that this works for a virtual audience as well. And then what does that look like? It's easy when you say it's all virtual. It's easy when you say it's all in person. It's difficult when you try to make it a hybrid event because you have to figure out how to give the people at home an experience. You can't just stream the general session. You just can't stream the breakouts. You almost have to have a slightly different show for them. So I'm kind of curious what that looks like because we're now entering that world.
Yeah, and I could totally jump in on that and kind of go a little back and forth there because I see what you're saying as well. This is a gathering business, and I feel that what we did with virtual, right, is that we tried to recreate that to an extent, and we were able to connect people. But you're right, we're missing that element of the interaction, that going out afterwards and getting drinks with your coworkers or your colleagues, or when you have much bigger, which we're jaded, right? We're a small niche community. We all work together. We all know each other. We hang out when we can. When we're on shows, we hang out. But with these bigger industries, these bigger companies, Fortune 500s, they have multiple locations. A lot of these people, they talk through emails and phone calls year round, and these conventions become that one time where they do get to see each other. So yeah, you're right. We are definitely jaded, and it's definitely different personality. My takeaway for the technology being, now that it's affordable and usable, just like we're doing here with this summit, right, is that with the moving forward of what we're going in technology and everything, is that trying to gather my thoughts here. So what I think is interesting
Well,
is
let me jump in.
Go ahead. Because
Well, let me jump in on this real quick. Because
what I was going to say is that I think
yeah.
hybrids is definitely, it's here for now, right? At least for the next couple of years. But you're right, and you made a very good point that even I didn't think about when you said it. When we do get back to this is a GS, right? A real GS, and there are multiple breakouts. How am I going to stream all that to the community without them having to click on multiple links or get lost in multiple things? This is a prime example right here. This summit here, it's just two links for the viewer, right? They went to our website, bought a ticket, they got to click there. On the back end, though, we're doing multiple links to get you to that one point. Now, imagine if I had to do that times 12 breakout rooms, 4 days, plus a GS, and then design content for each and individual one. That's a whole nother element, and that does take a lot of pre-production, a lot of graphic, a lot of content.
Well, here's what's happening with the live events industry as well, because something I didn't think about until you mentioned that is we're kind of going through what music production went through a long time ago, which is to go into a recording studio costs a lot of money, and now anybody can make music on their iPhone, or you could shoot a documentary, or you could have a YouTube channel with millions of followers just by using your iPhone. So I think what'll happen is actually this is a gateway for more events to take place. It's like think of what we're doing right now is like we have a food truck, and if this becomes what you're doing right now is popular, then you get a restaurant, or you get a chain of restaurants. So to have a show or have a convention, there's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of costs, there's a lot of things that you have to go through in order to make an event happen. But if you hold a virtual event, then what you're able to do is you're able to do what you're doing right now, which is at a very low cost. You can almost test a concept out and say, you know what? There's a lot of people that are interested in this. I'm getting a lot of good feedback. I'm going to let it kind of germinate and grow. And the other thing too is you can, like, if you look at what Tony Robbins did in South Florida, where he just built a studio next to his house. Now he just announced a tour. He's going back on tour, but he's keeping his studio. So he could literally just wake up in the morning and say, guys, 4 hours, we're going live because I have a thought that I need to get out there. That's where you're going to see virtual events becoming almost separated from live events, because it's going to allow people like him to accelerate his brand, and then people like you and others to test concepts and ideas on audiences. And if it becomes popular, well, then maybe what we're doing right now turns into an event. So in the past, you wouldn't have been able to do this unless you raised a lot of money and took on a lot of risk. There's a lot of investment that goes into a traditional show. So I think this allows people to just throw ideas at the wall, see what sticks, and concepts will be proven and unproven, and then those that win out will maybe turn into quote unquote real live shows. So I think that's the value of the virtual event is anybody can do it. So there's going to be a lot of garbage out there, but there's going to be a lot of cool stuff as well. So I think I had to catch myself there.
I like it. I
But
like
yeah,
it.
I think that could be the power of virtual is that it it's a jumping off point for people that are like, you know what, I really want to do something for, I'm really into this hobby. I'm really into RC cars. So I'm going to start a virtual convention for people that are really into RC cars. Pick anything you want, and then see what the interest is.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point, right? So this is now the new, right? There's no longer the old way. This is the new way now. Where hey, if you want to do a summit, you want to prove your worth to your community, to the people around you, to your investors, your sponsors, do it virtually first. See if you get the people, see if you get the rapport, and then maybe a year or two later, after you've done these and you've seen success and you've seen return on value, and you've seen that people want the content that you're producing, then you go to the next level. Then you go to that. Now you do a small conference somewhere. I love that. It's like a stepping stone now. Now it's like we've created that stepping stone to say, hey, you don't need a broadcast truck anymore to go from Brazil to South Florida. You just need good internet and a camera and essentially your phone and everything. And what your reference to the music industry is 100% right. I mean, it's how many videos are being made now, how many YouTube and influencers are coming out that they do everything off a cell phone and they make great content,
Yeah.
right? Maybe not always movie quality, but great content nonetheless. So yeah, it's just another entry level, and it's really taking that creativity to a next level. And I think that's really important. I think you hit that on the nail, honestly. And that's a whole
Well, and here's the thing
way to
is
look at it.
people have it because this you even see this on the news and TV shows and whatnot, and you see weird stuff like you'll see someone on CNN and you'll hear a dog barking or you'll see a child
Right,
walking in the
right.
room, and people have just accepted that this is a new medium. So I think I saw it when you went through your Chiron there. There's at least 6 or 8 presenters here. So just imagine that you had to fly us all in and put us up in a hotel, what that would cost, and now it's just booking people's time. So one thing I was thinking about the other day is like, okay, how will this medium that we're on right now change shows? Well, if I'm a sought after speaker, my time is money, not only, but also what's important to people, especially post COVID, is my freedom. My free time is to me uh, is like money as well. Like that means
Right.
something to me. Is my free time is transactional. So if I'm a presenter, I could almost give you a virtual rate where it's me in my studio and we're talking and it's X amount of dollars, or there's my live rate. Because I can do a lot more shows and give a lot more presentations in a setting like this than I can flying, being in a hotel, going back home, flying to the next show. And then the thing is, for everybody in the live events industry, yeah, we could push virtual aside for now, but in a live setting, what's really going to change is you're going to have to manage live presenters and virtual presenters.
Yep.
That's going to be a standard, and audiences are going to accept that. And what it's going to allow is it's actually going to allow more freedom for shows. Like you can have more presenters, you can be more creative, you can move faster. I think it's just a great way to. It's kind of the new way of the medium, and technicians and live event companies are going to have to roll with that. And one final comment that I'll say on this regarding live event companies is one thing I've seen during COVID is there's 2 types of companies out there on the live event side.
Right.
There's companies that batten down the hatches and said, we'll see you when shows come back, and then there's companies that said, no, we're gonna put we're gonna put a studio in our warehouse. We're gonna bring our customers in, and not only did they maintain their customers, they brought new customers in. Those customers will return to live, so their live events will in business will boom out of this. But now over the last year and a half, they have garnered the expertise to know how to do this. So when someone says, yeah, I want to do a virtual show, live, in person, and also virtual, then it's like, yeah, we've been doing that for 18 months. That's not a problem.
100%, 100%. And so I want to backtrack a little bit here because you had mentioned something a little bit at the beginning here about what we see on TV sometimes, and someone presenting in like a dog in the background barking, right? And how it's become acceptable.
Right.
And this leads me to another question that I had for you a little down the road, but I want to bring it up now because I think it's the right time and it's an important one, right? Before the pandemic, so 12, 18 months ago, we were on speed track for 4K content as the norm, and even some 8K stuff. It was coming out constantly back and forth. And then, the pandemic hits and all of a sudden 720 and even sometimes 340 because of some of the limitations we had, like you're saying, it's becoming acceptable. Do you see,
Right.
or what do you see moving forward now that scenario where we can call in from our homes, we can call in through a phone, we can call in with our kids in the background or walking in or whatever the case is, that's an acceptable thing now. Do you see that moving forward now, or are we going to try to go back to what we wore pre-pandemic and try to say, well, if you can't give me 1080 or 4K, you're not coming on? What are your views
I
on that, at
mean,
least?
my views are, if it's in a medium like this, resolution is not important. So, I felt for a long time, and I still do now, that 720p is the magic resolution. It looks great. It's easy to manage. It's just the workflow of it is simplistic, and everything about 720 to me has always been magical. But in a medium like this, 340 is not a big deal as long as it's the key is that you have clean audio and clean video that's not buffering and it looks good. At that point, people aren't as concerned about what it looks like visually. Now,
Right.
that's for what we're doing now. If we move into like a live event scenario, what I always remind people is that we've been doing 4K and 8K and beyond for a long time, a long time. And what I say by that is when you're looking at widescreen projection has been around since the early 2000s, and that's reached resolutions in that realm. So in a ballroom scenario, resolution is important. Quality of signal is important. Um, and moving forward, well, actually, if we look at live events before the pandemic, you had a lot of high resolution LED being used, whether it was projection replacement, whether it was a scenic element. A lot of companies were taking hard scenic and replacing with LED. And I would see shows that were just bonkers, just wall to wall LED it was the screens, it was content, it was, the stage background, it was everything, or it was a mix of LED and projection. And it was a lot of resolution to manage. And
Yep.
now that now that 4K projection is becoming a standard, now your resolution on site is quadrupled, right? So there's a lot to manage there. But in my opinion, when it comes to rectangles, meaning a 16:9 aspect ratio screen, you have to take into consideration the way the human eye works, which means you cannot see the difference between 4K and 8K and HD when you're a certain amount of feet away from that screen because the pixels move together.
Correct.
So you have to choose your resolution wisely. It's like, yes, okay, you want 4K projectors and you want 4K content, but what are you really gaining out of that? Is it worth the expense? Now, the good thing is, a few years ago, it would have cost a lot more to produce that 4K content. Now it doesn't cost any more to produce 4K content than it does HD. To go 8K costs a lot of money, but eventually it won't cost any more. So, that's the nice thing about the technology industry is what was expensive a few years ago is now the same cost as what is the standard now.
I like that. I like that. And real quick, I don't want to get too far away from it here. Obviously, I love where we're going here, but I don't want to get too far away from this topic real quick. And this is kind of a tough one here. I'd be fool not to address it pretty much, right? During the pandemic, a lot of people were left with many hardships, emotionally, financially, personally. For some people, it may have had loss. Despite the terrible outcomes, though, did you or do you have any or have seen any positive outcomes in all of this?
I mean, I think as long as the pandemic as long as we're coming out of it now and there isn't a double dip, which is kind of the worst case scenario, is that, I looked, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but like I looked at on the news today, and the COVID levels in the U.S. are now that of Brazil, which is really crazy. And the worst case scenario for live events is that if states and local governments say, hey, gatherings are now only 1,000 or only 100, then all these shows and all these concerts and everything that we're talking about in the fall go away, right? And that would be the worst case scenario for the industry. I think at that point we're in a lot of trouble. We got through a lot, but at that point we're in trouble.
Right.
But as far as, so that's what I hope does not happen. As far as lessons learned, for me personally, I was able to kind of stop and smell the roses. I was able to spend a lot of time with my son. I was fortunate enough to keep a lot of my staff on, and we were able to focus on the business. And I'm 41 now, and I've been through three major events in the industry, and nothing compares to COVID, of course. But I went through 9/11, Great Recession, and now this. And every time our industry has picked itself up, dusted its boots off, and moved forward, but we've never been shut down for 18 months. So,
Right.
the lessons that I've learned from this is that I will never take this industry for granted or what I do for a living for granted ever again, because I know that it can go away. And as much as we can say the live events are crucial, they can be justified as something that can be done without. We don't have to have the convention, we don't have to have the meeting, we don't have to have the concert, and that would be tragic for society. But as they're coming back, for me, it's like when I talk to people um, outside of the industry, they're like, I can't wait to go back to a concert like this. Like I cannot wait to go back to a concert. I cannot wait to go back to a show. So
Right.
it's like a loaded spring, you know. And for me, being able to focus on my life more, focus on family and friends and the business have been very important. And one is I always compare the live event industry, and maybe you can disagree with this or not, to kind of, I've never been in the military, but it's kind of like the military where it's like war. It's a lot of stress, a lot of excitement. And then when you come home, you want to be home, but then as soon as you get home, you want that excitement back. So then you go back on the road. And it's really easy to justify that because that's how you make a living. So, throughout my 24 years in this industry, what's the word that you always hear when you talk to someone about being busy? They're like, oh, I'm slammed. I'm so busy. I'm going from
Yep.
show to show. My hope would be that after this happens is for all of us, whether you're on the technician side, management side of this industry, operations, it doesn't matter, is that we at least can indoctrinate some level of health and well-being and say, yeah, it's busy, but as a technician, I'm going to split things up a little bit. I'm going to do X amount of virtual shows where I'm switching vMix at home. I'm going to do some live shows. I'm going to make sure that I've got time allocated with my family, and I'm going to figure out how much money I need to make per year so that I don't get absorbed into the road. The road is very romantic. I know this very well. Like there's nothing better than being on the road,
Right.
but there's a price to pay as well. And I think now that people have taken some time off, I don't think it should go back to business as usual. I think that there should be a balance. Balance is one of the most important things in life.
Yeah. So I was trying to find something to disagree with you, but no, I would agree 100% that the live events is very similar to the military, and it's kind of for me, since I joined the military when I was very young and got out at my mid 20s. It's very comfortable for me because the hours are similar. It's this is when my day starts and it ends at I don't know because it's not dependent on me, right? The
Right.
workflow we have, the team we have, the way we work together, and now that I'm 12 plus years in the industry, the team that I get to see and work with a lot, we have a repertoire. I know if I'm working with XYZ person or XYZ person, what I can do quicker or what I can delegate to that person. Same thing in the military when I build these teams. I was in the recon and I was doing a lot of stuff for that. I had a team that I could rely on and trust with. A couple of things you said here that really touch home at least. Was the part about your son. I have a daughter who's 6 years old, and I myself was on the road a lot. I love the road and I love traveling. But I get to spend a lot of time with her. And during this, I got to really connect with her and really be her father and really get to spend time with my kid that I realized I wasn't doing enough of. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. That was probably one of the biggest positives and also the biggest struggles I had because I'm so accustomed to this high stressful, high demand, constant environment that I never had the real time to de-stress and kind of just spend time with my kid who the only care is not that I don't miss this cue, is that is daddy gonna come hang out with me and play with me, or is daddy gonna do XYZ, right? When you're on a job site, you're just constantly trying to figure out, okay, what's the next thing I gotta do? I don't want to miss this cue. What's the next rehearsal? When's the next XY, just a constant, right? And in live,
So
for corporate, the one thing that I think is crucial is that us as engineers, we have to be quick to react because once a moment is gone, it's gone, right? And in live, that's it. You don't get another chance because it's live. And I think for me, kind of winding down and being like, I'm with my kid, I'm at home. If we don't go out and play and like the day doesn't go right, she doesn't really care because as long as I'm hanging out with her, that's all she cared about. And I got that was definitely a positive. So that hit me real quick when you talked about your son and you got to hang out and stuff because I also struggled with that, but I also was like, man, this is great. I get to actually spend time with my kid and there's no stress of, okay, we're gonna go do this tomorrow, no worries. And then I don't do it and she's mad that we didn't do it. Like she just doesn't care.
it's actually hard after living through COVID and seeing that this technology like we're using right now actually works.
Yeah,
It's hard to go back.
right,
So for example, I think the big meeting, the big show, the big concert, that's not going to go away anytime soon. But small meetings, things that small groups, there's no reason to fly 10 people into town when you could just jump on a Zoom meeting or something like that and have a conversation. I mean, I still am fascinated when I'm sitting there on a call like this and I see someone that's in Germany, Canada, I'm here in America, there's another person in California, and we're just talking fluently. Someone says, "Hey, I want to share my screen." Okay, I need to share a file with you guys. I mean, what a great way to collaborate and a great way to work. And to your point about being home more, like I said, there's what's been proven is like what I tell people is like what we're doing right now, like literally right now. This
right.
was 5 years away, but COVID compressed it all down. And what was proven is like, hey, this can be done, and the technology is here. And what? Who's to say that all live event technicians have to be on site? Why couldn't some people just dial in, switch a show, and then dial in and switch another show? I mean, I've had this fantasy in my mind where, you could have a camera operator with a device in their living room and they just dial to the camera ballroom or in some sort of setting. You operate it for a couple hours, you get your money, and then boom, you're doing another show somewhere else. You're not having to fly there to operate the camera. That the technology already exists. It's already here. So, the thing is if you're going to give me back my free time, because essentially what I'm doing is I'm trading my time by sitting in a seat in a ballroom for a week.
Right.
So if I could cut that down by 25, 30, 40%, I would take it. And also you can work more efficiently as well. So I think and hope that it's a new era. And if it doesn't go to that initially, it will. If we snap back to live events and it's kind of the same, it's like the pendulum. The pendulum swings both ways. It's going to settle somewhere in the middle, especially
Yep.
as this technology like we're using right now, it's only going to get better. It's only going to get more efficient.
So I want to do a quick recap here before I keep this going forward. But we've talked about hybrid events, where we see it going down the road, kind of where it fits in the industry. The positives of what came out of the pandemic, the positives of the technology that came out, the engineers who developed new products, the way we've used them, the way we've integrated them, the way we've mastered them. Right, essentially, maybe master is a strong word here, but the way we've essentially been able to reconnect the world as best we can virtually and create these events that are virtual that now we want to do together. What would you say in, I guess, the last 18 months, right? What are some of the changes you see, or the most significant changes you've been seeing happening in the world of AV?
In the last 18 months, it's really tough because being that my company Evolve, we don't do live events. We support companies that do live events. We're kind of on the outside looking in and saying, hey, what does the industry need? And other than calling clients, the barometer that I use is LinkedIn. So if you just go through, if
Got it.
you scrolling through your LinkedIn profile, a pandemic, it was, oh my God, the life is over. And then a few weeks later, it was, you saw people starting to do a virtual show, and then bigger virtual shows, and then staging companies built studios, and they were doing, not just Zoom meetings, like really like producing live events in a unique way. I mean, the interesting thing is, like, nobody in the rental staging industry ever thought that they would be in a production business. Like, we have to understand, like, many staging companies got into the studio business during COVID. They built studios and
Yep.
they managed shows from their studio. The question is that the problem with that is the studios are built in their warehouses. So what happens when shows come back and there is a hybrid component? Does the studio go away? Do they strike it? What does that look like? So anyway, so the is that what was that? It was, oh my God. And then it was traditional, like, everybody in this industry, we're all badass MFers, and nothing's going to stop us, is going to slow us down. Everybody in this industry is a badass. And I didn't talk to anybody during this whole pandemic that was crying and saying, "Oh my God." I don't know
Right.
anybody during this pandemic that isn't in better physical shape than they were. You know why? Because they weren't on the road eating crappy hotel food, drinking until 11 o'clock at night. They were exercising, they were walking, going on their bike, hiking. And it's like, those are the positive changes and things that I've seen happening in the industry. But anyway, getting back to your point, looking through LinkedIn, you saw this transition of shutdown, basic Zoom meeting management,
Yep.
real show management, studios being built, and now what you're seeing is a transition slowly back to live. And I like that. Now, what I don't know, and I'm not going to pretend to answer all your questions accurately, is only time will tell what this looks like on the other side. Some
Right.
things change, some things will stay the same. But I think that our best days are ahead of us, and I think it's a really exciting time to be in the live event industry. And one thing that I'll say that is our biggest problem is, most people in the events industry, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, are over the age of 40. And what I always tell people is that, this is the most money that you can make without a high school education. You could literally
True.
learn a disguised media server and make $150,000 a year. That's a lot of money.
Yep.
Okay, and that's just by being smart and learning a media server platform. So I the one thing that I want to change coming out of this is, I'm so tired of talking, and I'm in this boat too. I got into this industry by accident. This industry is too big, too exciting, too fast moving for people to fall into it by accident. There needs to be planning for this. And here's the thing. Right now, there has to be, because there's a lot of people in live events that ain't coming back. And the reason why they're not coming back is they're not fortunate to have been, let's say, like, people that are in the video side of things have been fortunate because they've been able to pivot,
Yep.
right? That's clear. But if you're an audio technician, if you're a lighting technician, if you're a stagehand, you have not worked in a long time and have found work. The question is, how many of them have come back? Live Nation, excuse me, published they put something online a few weeks ago. Live Nation is the biggest touring management company in the world, and they have right now in 2022 twice as many tours booked as they did in 2019, pre-pandemic. Now that's great.
Nice.
Where are those people coming from? We need to stop. This can't be an accidental industry anymore. We need to have people that plan in high school, hey, I want to be in the live event industry. And the reason why they don't, and I always use my father as an example, is when I was 18 years old and I sat down at dinner with my family and I was dressed like I am now in black. I was trying to explain to my father what I was doing for a living. He literally dropped his fork and looked at me. So my son's a stage, and then he continued eating, and there was no further discussion on that.
Oh,
And that's
what?
bullshit. So my point is that there's a misconception. So if there are people from our industry, and I would challenge almost, groups like Avixa and others to take up this charge, and I'm willing to do that as well because I think it's needed, is we should have coalitions that are going into schools, high schools, and saying, I am not from the AV industry. I am not a roadie. I am a live event technician that my job is to entertain you. And everybody in this class has been to a concert or been to an event, and you already know what I do, but you can do it as well. And you can make good money. You don't have to go to college if you don't want to. And if you're smart and you're hardworking and you're dedicated, you can rise very, very quickly throughout the industry. We have to stop letting people jump into this industry by accident. Those days need to be over.
No, I 100% agree with you. I'm actually second generation AV, so my experience was definitely different than that. You know, my father owns an AV company, so he was like, "You should totally do this." And then when I worked for him for a while, I had a different experience. When I worked for him for about 6 years, when I started my career, I got to a point where I was the lead, and he said, "Hey, if you want to make more money, go get out of the company, go freelance." So literally, my career path was, you know, in house for 6 years, learn what you got to learn, master your craft a little bit, and then get out there and make more money. And my dad fully
You
supported me,
have to
encouraged me the entire time.
there's a pathway when you start out. Like when you're in your 20s, you need to basically don't buy anything. Live like a hobo. Know that you're making a lot of money and don't care. Don't let people don't show off. Don't drive a fancy car. You're not going to need it anyway. You're just going to be driving to the airport. Just take an Uber.
True
But
that.
work your ass off in your 20s in the live event industry. Take as many gigs as you can. Learn everything. Make as much money as you can. Live off your per diem. Save, save, save. Right. So then, because once you get the third, because nobody sits down a young technician and says, "Hey, kid, eventually you're having fun right now on tour and doing all these gigs, but eventually you're going to turn 30, and eventually you're going to get married, and eventually you're going to have kids, and eventually your wife isn't going to like the fact that you're never home, and your kids aren't going to like it, and eventually you're going to get closer to 40 and you're going to get divorced, and all these problems are going to compound in your life, and guess what? You can't get off the Ferris wheel. You're stuck on it. So you need to keep working, and then you have no time to deal with the negative aspects of your life. That's the I mean that not to be again a downer, but someone needs those honest conversations need to happen and say, look,
Yep.
there's a progression to being a technician, which is especially as a freelancer, is you have to look at yourself as a business. You are not just someone that sits in a chair and pushes buttons. You can do that at the beginning and learn as much as you can and see as many things as you can and have as many experiences as you can. Show up to work hungover as hell. Learn the hard lessons that you need to learn. Just always show up and always perform. It doesn't matter what kind of condition you're in, whether you're hungover or whether you have a stomach bug and you're throwing up into a bucket during the whole show. A true professional is someone that can work through anything. But as you get older, you have to think to yourself, what value can I continue to add to my client base so that I can either make the same income and spend less time in the chair, or make more income. So you can do that by buying equipment. I highly recommend that. I'm a big advocate of freelancers buying gear. That's the biggest way to add value, even if you're just showing up with adapters and converters and things that are handy. When you're that guy or that gal, you can charge $50 to $100 more a day. It's worth
Yep.
it. And then from there, put together a little black magic rig, and eventually what's going to happen is, as long as you don't say no, which is the key, always say yes, then you and that rig become two rigs and three rigs and maybe some LED projection. Now you have a little warehouse. And you don't have to go down that road. You could get into sales. There's a lot of different things that you can do, but the key is to sit down and say, all right, I'm 23. I'm in this industry. This is where I want to be when I'm 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. And there's plenty of examples that people that have gotten older that something happened to them. They were in an accident, they had a medical crisis, something happened. It's like, if you can't do your job, you're in a lot of trouble. So you
Yep.
need to figure out how to diversify yourself, how you can make more money by not being on show site all the time, and just kind of have a plan for the future that, if you love live events, allows you to stay in live events for the long haul.
And just to jump on that, what you just said about freelancers buying gear, you know, I myself have done the same thing. I'm curious of your thoughts on As the industry's been progressing, right, and in my opinion, corporate AV is still relatively a newer industry compared to a lot of the other ones. Touring, installations, theater, they've been around, in my opinion, much longer than corporate. Do you see more manufacturers coming out with more corporate AV specific gear? Like my one example I could give in my mind is like Blackmagic Design makes a lot of gear that I feel is very corporate AV specific, versus Barco, where Barco has a niche, right, department for us, but that's not where they really make their bread and butter. They have many more other products that make them more money in the medical side and other industries. Do you see other more companies coming out that are more corporate AV specific?
So I'll push back on the Barco example a little bit, and because if you look at well, I mean, and I'll say that because if you look at Barco, for example, as a whole,
Right.
yes, they're a large billion-and-a-half euro company, and they make military equipment and
Mm-hmm.
avionics, and they make medical. Those are
100%.
divisions. But if you look at their events, they have an events division. Those projectors, if you've used a Barco projector, they're built for the road. When you order a UDM, I'm not trying to have a Barco commercial here, but we all use Barco in live events.
Right.
When you order a UDM from Barco, it comes in a road case in the cage, like literally ready to go. Nobody else does that. The E2, the PDS, for example, those are live event built products that can be used in integration, but they're mainly for live events. The thing with most companies, and Blackmagic is a great example, and I think they make good products at a very affordable price, is that they make a very small margin on their products because of what they charge, so they have to sell a lot of them. Where the latter company, it's a little bit different, where it's high margin, lower volume.
Got it.
So I guess the point is that I don't think. Well, I'll give you an example because I wrote down a couple things really quick for this question, okay? And I'll kind of get into my point.
Yeah, no worries.
Is
And if I misspoke, I
it
apologize. I was meaning that Barcode, their main bread and butter isn't corporate, right? Even though we may think it is, and this is my
right,
personal,
right,
right?
right.
They make money in a lot of other sectors. What they do for corporate is a small portion of what their profits are. But where Black Magic, maybe the majority of their profits come from our sector of the industry.
So most of like Black Magic's profits, for example, come from people like you, for example, that buy their switchers and buy their small products that
Right.
are $1,000,
Yep.
and it's allowed a lot of filmmakers can't afford a red camera, a Sony Venice and an Ariel F are $100,000, let alone what the lenses cost for those things. And you can buy a Blackmagic camera that looks great and shoot a movie for under 10 grand. It's
Correct.
good, it's decent equipment, but it's not built for live events. It's adapted into live events, and that's how it's been from the beginning. And the reason why that is because even though we're a larger industry, we are the most high maintenance industry that you can imagine. So look at it this way: is how much when you're on show site, how much troubleshooting and damage and replacement of LED panels do you see? Okay, it's ridiculous.
It's constant.
Because LED panels were never designed to be on the road, but we adapted them and started using them on shows. If you take an LED wall and you put it in an airport, for example, and or a fixed installation at church is probably a better example than an airport. That LED wall can run for literally years and years and years without a single problem because it's not moving around. So the reason why a lot of live event or a lot of I'm sorry, why a lot of manufacturers stay out of live events is because we use their gear in ways that they don't want to design it for. Because if it's designed for live
Oh,
events, they have to build it to a certain level of build quality. It's always be when something goes into fixed insulation, if it works, it's done. It stays there forever. It's working. In live events, some new computer comes out, some new interface comes out. Things are always changing. There's new ways of doing things. We're always going to the manufacturers and saying, you need to fix this. This is broken. We need this. Constant. It's constant. So a lot of them look at us and it's like we're a bright, shiny object because it's a sexy industry. And a lot of
I like that.
companies want to get into live events, but it's like, well, if you want to get into live events, here's what you have to do. Like you have to make products that are built for live events, and that makes your products cost extra. You need to have people on staff that will answer the phone on a Saturday night because live events are mission critical. I can't wait till Monday to get a call back from tech support.
Right.
So what we've done very interesting in the live event sector is we find products that were made for something else and we bring it into the live events industry.
Yes.
And one thing that I wrote down that I think is the ultimate example of that is, and and then I'll give you my Mount Rushmore of video products.
Love
Um,
it.
it's not Aja, by the way, pro tip, it's AJA, the AJA Key Pro. The original Key Pro was the reason why they developed that is they said we record, back then 12, 13 years ago, 14 years ago when that thing came out, SSD drives could only hold so much data. So they said, all right, if we shove a traditional spinner drive in there, we can do 10 terabytes. Oh my God. And it was designed to sit underneath the camera and the camera would feed into the Key Pro.
Nice.
And the AV industry looked at that and we said, what? A $3,500 HD recorder? We'll take thousands of those, please. And I've been in this industry for 24 years, so I saw us go, myself going from uh, Betacam recording
Uh-huh.
to DV cam recording to Grass Valley Turbo recording, and then all of a sudden this Key Pro came out, and it just changed the game. But we saw something that was out there, and we said we want this for us. That's what we do in the event sector. Is there's a few things out there that are created for us, but there's a lot of things that weren't, that we see and we say, oh, I need that. But I'll tell you this, there are some game changers. I kind of came up with this, and this is like a side topic. I was thinking about this last night, is if there's a Mount Rushmore of video, event products, this is what I would say. And there's some that we pulled over,
I like it.
and there's some that were designed for us. So the ones that I give out there, being kind of an old dog, is if I had a mountain, you'd have a DLP chip, game changer.
Uh-huh.
And this is up, I would love comments on this to say, hey, you really forgot about this one here. But the DLP chip was a game changer. The Sony 1024 was a game changer when it came out.
Okay.
Because before then, it was all just like Extron punch boxes, and it was a disaster. And but it wasn't designed for live events. We saw it and we said, we'll take that. We'll take thousands of those. The Scream Pro, the original Scream Pro, came out in 2000, 2001. The first real true seamless switcher. That was meant for live events. That was there to serve a purpose. Playback Pro.
Yep.
Shout out to Brian with Playback Pro. I did a show with him in 2006, 2005. We were literally sitting backstage, and he was writing the code during the show for Playback Pro, and he said,
awesome.
I'm gonna fix all this. And it was such a simplistic program. All it is, sorry, Brian, is it's a code. It's just a skin that goes over QuickTime and launches QuickTime in the background. By the way, and another way that you can learn to make money back on show site, don't sit there and watch Facebook or watch YouTube. This guy learned how to program. He would read C+ books backstage, learn how to program, wrote Playback Pro. And you want to talk about overnight just completely changing the industry. All these playback machines went away, and it was replaced by a Mac with a $700 software. And I don't know many technicians that don't have that on their keychain or in their workbox or in their toolkit, and everybody knows how to use it.
Yep.
And then the last one
can I jump in real quick? Real quick.
Yeah.
It's so crazy you said that, and I don't mean to take over here, and I want to hear the last one, but I'm gonna follow up to that one because so we're doing a series of articles on AV Educate right now about apps, particularly that are made for the industry. And I got to tell you, if the community hasn't seen those yet, we did 15 different interviews, and about 12 of them, each app was developed by the developer during the pandemic. By themselves, they figured out how to code, how to develop, and how to make it and publish it to Google and Apple in about 6 to 8 months. They learned an entire new way of doing stuff to make a product that was just easier for them, exactly like Brian did for Playback. He just went online, figured it out, paid for some courses, and within less than a year's time, they came with a fully developed product that they pushed out to the market, and it's been doing great for them. I mean,
and sometimes
Yeah, it's just amazing.
And sometimes simplicity is key. Like that, not
Yep.
to do a Playback Pro commercial, but the simplicity of that program replaced the complexity of a turbo. Turbos
Right.
were very because the thing that nobody understood outside of like this is an example of a technician being backstage saying this all sucks, and the issue that I have is I am working with a production company that's giving me a bunch of files that are produced well, and that's great. But now I have a presenter showing up with a USB file, and he or she's got some weird thing that I need to convert. I can't
Right.
do that on this box over here because it's closed, but I can do it in a Mac. And if I can't do it in Playback Pro, I can download something. I remember that I did a show where they had a YouTube clip that they wanted to show. And I went online and I said, convert YouTube clip to QuickTime. And I downloaded this free software, and all you did was put the URL, the website
Yep.
for the YouTube clip in there, and it would spit out a file. Boom, Playback Pro done. Like
Yep.
that's why it became something that makes your job easier is is inherently what's going to be popular. And the thing is, as technicians, you all are backstage and manufacturers aren't. That's the thing that you have to understand is a lot of them don't understand the live events industry. So they're not developing programs and equipment specifically to make things easier.
That's a
But
very good
sometimes
point.
it just like sometimes just bubbles up and it's like, oh, well, this just happened and it's cool. Anyway, last one, and we'll move on. Key Pro, Mount Rushmore of AV, and then of course my honorable mention is the original Encore, which is my favorite piece of gear of all time. That
Of
that and
course.
the FSN. So that's three Barco products there. So anyway,
So no,
that's
listen,
all I got.
I'm okay to be sending corrected. I apologize that I misspoke, and now I learned something new myself. So thanks for keeping me honest. So we got about 10 minutes left on the clock here. There's a couple questions I want to throw at you that are a little off base, but I feel that are also part of the kind of ongoing movement we have in the industry right now. And the one in particular that's been getting thrown out a lot is Simply 2110 and it being an IP based, right? And I feel that for my stuff, what I do with the installation industry, IP is kind of the norm, but corporate not so much. I see that coming into corporate a little bit more. What are your thoughts on Simply 2110 and kind of corporate embracing some of that and moving forward?
I think this is probably my weakest point, but I'll try to fake my way through the question, which is it's become the standard in integration. It's become the standard in the production world, meaning remote trucks, OB trucks, that sort of thing. That's
Right.
become the standard in broadcast, and it will become the standard in the audiovisual industry for the most part. Once people really wrap their heads around it and get through it. And that's the one thing that's going to change coming out of COVID and moving into the future is that there's going to be a major change. Like if I look at my career and look at going from a beta deck to a key pro to something that a black magic device that fits on the palm of your hand, where are things going to be at in 5 or 10 years? Everything's going to be network based on show site, and you're going to be able to tie in lighting, audio, video, comm. Everything will be managed and everything will be diversified on show site, and it's just going to
Yep.
make everything so much easier. And the other thing that's going to be really interesting is if I'm putting on my futurist hat here, um, is outboard gear is going to go away. So you'll always have liner rate, you always have speakers, you always have projectors and screens and LED and microphones and things like that. Those are things that you can't really replace. But playback devices, record devices, switchers, anything that you see really backstage, even if you look at equipment like um, an audio console or a Grand MA console, they're really just computers with a hard surface, an interactive GUI that you can interact with. But it's a computer. So what I think is going to happen long term is instead of rolling in all these road cases of ancillary gear that all have to go together, you're going to see racks of servers that get rolled in the show site. And then
Yep.
from there, your E2, let's say, will be something that you basically will show up on a show and say, all right, these servers, these are my image processors, and I want On this one, I want an E2. And the compute basically what's going to happen is going to say, all right, you've allocated this much of your resources. All right, how many records do I need? I need 6 records. Okay, what kind of recorder do I want? All right, I want a Key Pro Ultra. I'm going to drag those in. I want to disguise VX4s. Okay, I'm going to drag those in. And then you're going to have people managing those separately, but everything's going to be plug-in based. And then from there, it's all going to be ST2110. I mean, it's just going to be all this ancillary gear is going to go away. That I'm 100% sure of. It's going to make things easier. It's going to make things more efficient. It's going to make load in quicker.
Yep.
But then what it does long term, then you can get really crazy with this. And kind of the next step is at some point, a lot of what we're talking about can be done in the cloud. Why have a lot of this gear on show site as well? Everything can be pointed towards the cloud, and when things
100%.
are happening in real time. And the reason why I would think this was crazy not that long ago, but I could probably talk another hour on virtual production, meaning Mandalorian style, LED replacing hard sets and scenic elements for film and
Right.
television production, which is a huge market. I've been immersing myself in that and studying that for the last year, and I've been visiting a lot of high-end production companies, and I've never really been to a high-end production company in a long, long time. And what's amazed me, if you want to know where our industry is going, look at their workflow. There are literally companies out there that are major, major film and production studios that have staff all over the world that are editing, compositing, rendering in real time 4K without the need to download or upload anything. And as a producer, I can jump in and circle on a screen and say, no, this is not right. And you could have artists here in Brazil, Poland, Japan, the United States, all working collaboratively together in real time. And it's allowed that market to be very efficient because you don't have to have all the staff. You can have producers, and then you can scale up based on what you're doing, and everybody can work in the cloud. It's crazy. At some point, that will work its way into the live events industry, into the television production industry. That's just a matter of time. Now, the good thing is that nothing goes away. But if I had to look at like one piece of gear that I didn't put on my Mount Rushmore list because it doesn't pertain to live events, is I'll tell you just a really quick story. Is when I was young and my dad worked for a very large company in Michigan. He took me for a tour of their video production department. This was like 1995, 96. And it
Okay.
was big 2-inch tape machines, a bunch of people in the room. It looked like a big production truck, but they were just like editing a video, right? And
Right.
I remember on part of the tour, I went through this room and there was a big wood room, and there was a conference room table, and there were 3 boxes on the conference room table. And I asked the guy, I said, "What is that?" And he rolled his eyes and he said, it's called an Avid, right? And anybody that knows about where things are at now is that machine crushed all of that outboard gear. It all went away. But it doesn't mean that the need for editors went away. It actually increased, and it made the price of entry lower than it was before. The question to all of us in the live event industry is, are you ready for change? Because change is going to happen in a big way. It's going to be exciting, it's going to be scary, but what we're all going to have to decide is this my retirement moment and I'm like, this is too much for me, or is this like I'm going to double down and I get this, I love this, I want this, I'm going for it. So I really feel like the next decade for the events market is going to be the most exciting, the most change, and it's going to be a thrilling ride. And I mean, personally, I'm ready for what's next.
I like it. I like it. So I'm gonna bypass a couple questions here and just get to the last one here. Last question for the audience watching today, actually. What advice would you give them on business or on freelancing that we haven't covered yet, or like one final piece of wisdom to the audience before we wrap up for the day?
Hang in there. The world needs us. We're jaded by the industry that we're in because that's all we see. But don't ever kid yourself that the industry that we service is massive. There's a lot of people's livelihoods that are dependent on it. But at the end of the day, we make people's lives better. We offer them an escape, even if it's just a convention, trade show, meeting. If you look at concerts, comedy tours, that sort of thing. Our industry, the men and women that serve that, like we one thing through COVID that's happened is it's put a spotlight on the men and women who dress in black and are never seen or heard. And that's what's made, me explaining my career for most of my life very difficult. And the
Yep.
sad thing about COVID is when I tell people what I do for a living now, they kind of look at me like I'm so sorry, because live events have been brought to the forefront in a negative way because there's so many people that lost their livelihood for so long. So if I had to give any advice, which is love your industry. It's a fantastic industry. It makes people happy. It gives people an escape. I'm really sorry that it went away, and it's been a tragic 18 months. I hope we never have to go through this garbage again. But just hang in there, come back for the ride. The industry needs you. But just when you do, if you do come back, and I hope that you all do, just let's do it differently this time. Let's keep a focus on health, well-being, um, looking at yourself as a business, and how you can expand, and also do, like I saw that you're going to have Clem on, I think
Yes, sir.
tomorrow. And I'll give a shout out to Clem. One of the things I really respect about what he does is that guy wrote a book on projection. That guy goes to schools and talks about what he does for a living to little kids, and we need more of that. And the reason why he does that is because he's proud of what he does. And I think we all need to be proud of what we do. We need to talk about what we do. We need to educate people on what we do, and we need to stick with it. The best is yet to come. It's been tough. It's been terrible, but hopefully the war is over, and let's just get back to business. Let's do things differently. Let's talk together. Let's not hide our emotions. Let's try to be, live events 2.0 coming out of this. And, let's just crush it the next decade plus, because what we all love, and not only the people, we love our industry, but everybody loves our industry. And we need to cherish it. People miss it. People miss what we do. People miss what we bring to the table. So let's just get ready for the comeback. Let's make it a little bit different. Let's do it better. And let's keep pushing things forward.
Love it. The best is yet to come. Live events 2.0. Let's make things better. Tyler, thank you so much for being here with us today. I really appreciate all the wisdom and thoughtfulness and your words. Obviously, truly inspiring, truly insightful. There's tons of things that you have a vision about this industry that even me, who's passionate about it, just didn't see it that way. And I'm glad now to have opened my mind to a better way to see things. And again, just from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here and being a part of the summit and being a part with us and imparting us with all your knowledge and wisdom. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Omar. I'm truly honored to be a guest, and best of luck to you. Congratulations on the success of AV Educate, this event, and hopefully to many more of these. So I'm really honored to be the keynote and to kick things off. So thank you very much, and obrigado from Brazil.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Tyler. All right, everybody. So you guys just heard from Tyler Mayne. I know you tons of process here, tons of lot to do in there. So we're gonna do a little mindfulness break, a little 10 minutes before our next speaker. So take a break, breathe in, breathe out, relax, digest what you did. If you guys are making notes like I was here, definitely take them, absorb them for a little bit, because we're still gonna come at you with tons more today, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the day. See you guys on the next one.